Hello, I'm Sheila Myers with Stamping Wishes, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be doing this scene that comes from our Waterfront stamp set. I've also incorporated the kindness and comfort for the sayings that we're going to be putting on it. And then I'm using one of the trees for the inside of the card from Rooted in Nature, this one here. So this is the outside of the card, and this is the inside of the card here. And I don't have it totally tacked down because I'm getting ready to do this in a class next week. And what I normally do is I have it's a standing frame that I'll put the front of the card in and then the inside of the card. That way the ladies can observe it without getting any kind of ink stains or anything like that on it. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started and talk about what we're going to be needing in our supplies today. We're using for cardstock the Very Vanilla, and if you have the thick cardstock on hand, that's great to be using as a base for this. And this is cut at 5 by 10 because we're going to make a 5 by 5 card. Then for the inside, we have, this is for another piece of Very Vanilla, which is cut at 4 by 4. And then the gray granite that is matting behind it is 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. Then for the front of it, we've ran this through the stitch framelits. Let me see where they are. Here they are. The stitch framelits, and I'm using the largest square on that one. And so I just used a scrap of the Very Vanilla, which we'll be using as part of this when we start stamping it. And then this will be the matting of it once we've finished stamping it and start putting it together. Okay, so let's go ahead and set these 3 pieces aside. And we'll put this up here. Now, as far as ink colors go, we are using quite a few to get all the different colors that I've used in here. This first one is our Highland Heather. And then I came back with the gray granite and did a couple of kind of this. Gray granite to me has kind of a taupey color or a brown hint of the gray in it. And then this is the basic gray here, which I originally didn't want to get one quite that dark because I do stamp off on it, but went ahead and left it like it was. And then the background mountains are done in smoky gray, and I do stamp off for these to give it more of a distant shadowed look. And then I came back with Tranquil Tide to give it a shoreline here. And then I used the Pool Party in combination with the Balmy Blue to bring in some water tones in here. And then I used the shaded spruce for my trees set in there. And then the stamping of the lettering is done with the basic gray, both here, and then this is where I used the tree, which again I used in the gray granite just to kind of give it a different look. I did shade with some of the smoky slate around the edges of it, and then stamped with the basic gray. So let's go ahead and score the card, and we'll get started. One of the things that I've learned with especially using these stamp pads, and you're using the photopolymer stamps. I don't know if I've got this in, so let me go ahead and do it sideways this way, and so you can see what I'm doing. I'm scoring it at the 5-inch, because again, this is 5 by 5. So we'll go ahead and score that. But whenever you're using those, a lot of times what happens is ink will get onto your block and virtually ruin your card. And so what we're going to do today is use the hold on just a second. Sit here talking and forget what I'm doing here. But we're going to use the daubers and ink up our stamps with them, and it gives you a more controlled ink, and you don't seem to get as much of the mist inking from that gets on the block, because if you're not paying real close attention to it, then you end up having it all over your card, which was the first one that I did, and I thought, okay, there's got to be a better way, and that's what I did with it. So let's go ahead and get started with the mountains, and we're going to do the Highland Heather first. And what I do to incorporate this so that we can separate it out is we're going to use some temporary adhesive on the back of it. And you want to center that the best you can on your card where it looks good to you, both horizontally and vertically. So let's go ahead and put it there. I think that's a good fit there. And keep in mind, whenever you're stamping over another piece of paper like this, it's going to have a tendency to want to leave a space in there. Some of the space will be taken up by our gray granite piece. It's going to mat up underneath it, but I come back in a lot of times and try and get in those areas just in case it doesn't go all the way. So let's go ahead and get started here, and I'll leave this out so you can kind of see what's going on here. Oh, one thing about it too, I don't know if any of you ever have these little Crisco containers left if you buy the sticks of Crisco for baking, but they make the most wonderful dauber containers, and they have a lid on it, so it helps keep the moisture on them where these don't dry out on you. But you can get a whole color family inside one of these, and I just love using those for that. So that's a little tidbit today. Okay, so we've got our Highland Heather here. Let's go ahead and stamp this up. And as I mentioned, we're going to be doing some stamping off. So let me go ahead and get one of my scrap papers here and move this up here where we can kind of keep it straight. And I want to stamp off, and it looks like I don't have quite enough ink on here all the way across. So let's do that again and stamp off. And since we are using a photopolymer set, let's go ahead and bring in, and I'm going to stamp one more time because I do want this to be very light when I start this off. And so let's start our mountain ridge probably about right here. Let the ink transfer, and this is what I was talking about, that it would have a tendency to leave a spacing, but we'll just stamp over in an area there, and it'll cover up some of that. And plus, when we go to do the other part, it's going to take that and blend it in as well. Okay. And what I'm doing here, I don't know if I'm still in the view of the camera, so I want to make sure I get this back over here where you can see it, is again, I'm just pouncing the color on, and then I'm stamping it off because I just want some lighter of this color blend in here. And if you notice, I kind of came back with the edge of this and brought it over that, so coming from a different angle, it kind of brings in some of the coverage here. But again, you're going to have that 1/4 inch around the edging here that'll take care of that as well. So let's go ahead and bring our next color in. We'll use a little bit of the gray granite and bring that into our scenery here. And here's the gray granite, so let's get it open. And our little dauber for it. Okay, so again, we're going to stamp up the stamp. And let me stamp off here. Okay, so I want to bring some of that gray granite right into about this area here. And I am stamping over the Highland Heather because, again, I'm wanting this to look in layers and distances and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and almost went and stepped directly on that block again, and make sure I don't have any of the overhang on it. And then we're going to go ahead and put one over here. Okay. And this gray granite, if you don't stamp it off, can get kind of on the dark side, so you might want to be sure that you've stamped off at least, you know, once for this mountain ridge that we're doing here. And then I'm going to bring this over and stamp it off one more time and bring it across. And we'll come up just a little bit higher there. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, so let's clean off our block here and get our next color, which will be our smoky slate, which we're going to bring into the background at a little bit higher ridges of it. And we'll decide later whether we want to put one of the darker basic grays. I really don't think I want to. I want to kind of keep this one on the lighter side. Oops. I'm going to be sitting here stamping with 2 or 3 of these. Okay, and as you can see, I've recently inked my smoky slate up, so it definitely is a wet stamp, and as you can see, it comes out pretty dark. So I stamped it off a couple of times to be sure that I didn't get too much color in there. Okay, so again, we'll stamp up the block. Okay. And do 2 of them we'll take off. Okay. And then we want to, just want to kind of bring this in to make sure we've got some color in, around that edging there. Okay. And I think we'll bring a couple of more right into here, and then I think that's it for our mountains. And we'll get on into the shoreline. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. Okay, let's go ahead and stop there at that point then with our mountains and get our shoreline going. Now on the shoreline, as I mentioned earlier, I used some of the Tranquil Tide, so we're going to again use that. It's just kind of to give it a colorful look is why I'm using some of the colors that I am using. And again, these stamps are coming from the Waterfront stamp set. That's Tranquil Tide. Yep. Okay. Sure it was. When you start getting a lot of different colors in here and talking at the same time, you have a tendency to mess up sometimes, so I better focus on what I'm doing. Okay. Like the color shading that we've got going on here. And you can make this darker, so I'm going to stamp off, but go ahead and bring it one shade lighter, and then I can go over it if I feel like we need a little bit more depth, which I usually do. And sometimes I even bring the grays into over on top of it to help give it that shadowed, distant look. Okay. Right, I maybe bring some of the gray granite into it. Okay, I like that with the Tranquil Tide, so let's go ahead and stop there, but I am going to add a little bit of the gray granite to it just to give it some more shading, especially right about here on the upper portion of this where the mountain meets the shoreline area there. Let's close up the Tranquil Tide and get the gray granite back out here. And it looks like okay. Let's go ahead and put some more gray granite on it. Let's see how dark that is. Now that looks good. Okay. And you can kind of see how it gives that darker shading in the further background, which is what we want. Up further there. I'm liking the way it's coming out, looking really nice. I love this waterfront. There's so many different, there's been a lot of demonstrators do a lot of different styles with this and come out with some beautiful scenery. So it's a fun set to play with. Okay, so now we want to work on getting some of our water down there. So let's go ahead and start off with, we'll start with the balmy blue and go into the pool party. Okay, so for this one, this is the balmy blue. We're going to start off with our water edge here, which is one of the stamp sets that comes with that waterfront, and kind of starts giving it a wavy look, forming the color. So let's go ahead and do it about there. Okay, and we're going to do this one more time, and then we'll bring the pool party in. And no way is wrong. You can, I mean, it's whatever your eye sees, or the artistic portion of this, what you would like to see come from it. So it just, anything can be done on it. Okay, so now I'm going to take and add a pool party to this one, and then go to the bigger one with more of the pool party. I don't want to get it too blue. The pool party has a tendency to have that lighter bluish green effect to it, so that's what we want to use. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, I think this looks good. We'll do a little bit more there. It was pretty light. Okay, and we'll bring this in here. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and bring in this one for the rest of the water. Make sure this is on. Get enough of the pool party. We may not have gotten enough color on that one, so we may have to redo it. No, I like it. It's light, but I like that effect it has. And we're going to do a little bit of shading around, just to kind of give it a shoreline around the edges as well, where the ground meets the water, so it doesn't look like the trees are floating in water. But I'm going to go back over this just a little bit. Okay, now one of the other things that I did is I lifted this up only because I wanted to be sure that we had enough color down here with the gray matting that we're going to do. So I brought this in and stamped it over, or under I should say, that area. And then I just put this, line this back up where it belongs. There we go. About right. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of the shading before we stamp our trees on there. So let's go ahead and put the pool party aside for a second, and let's get our, where's our smoky slate? Here it is. No, let's use a little bit more of the gray granite, because that way we'll get a little bit more of the what I call the dirt kind of coloring coming in. Always remember to take off, when you're doing this, a little bit of your coloring before you start sponging, so you don't get a big color blob on your card when you're shading like this. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and come on around the body of water here and on to the other side as well. Come up here, again go around the shoreline where the trees are going to be, Just kind of want to bring that into it. Okay, I think that looks good. And if we want to, we can kind of bring some of that in there where your edge mountain is. Most of that's going to be covered with your matting, but just to make sure. Okay, let's go ahead and get our shaded spruce for our trees. And sometimes I like to kind of blend some of the shaded spruce with a little bit of the basic gray to give the, ooh, I got a big glob of ink on me, so let me get rid of that before I get it on the card. But I like to blend the two colors so it kind of gives some depth to the tree when we're stamping it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the basic gray out here as well, and we'll stamp up the tree. All right, here's our tree set. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little basic gray on it, and then I'll come back with the green. Just kind of in the center of the tree areas and where the tree trunks would be and stuff is where I want to do that. And then we're going to come in with the shaded spruce, again taking off some of our ink there because we don't want it to be super, super dark. Okay, let's see what we get here. All right, it looks like we'll have enough space probably to get two of the trees in nicely, so we'll go ahead and put them about here, I think. Nice. Okay. And if we want to get those a little bit darker, which I may on this next one over here, we can do that as well. You can do it as dark or as light as you want it. And we're going to be doing maybe two trees, part of a tree here. Let me see what we've got going. I did get some green in between my stamp here. I want to clean that off so I don't get any smudges. Okay. We'll do this side too, because see how much room we have. Okay, I'm going to move this off to the side here because I don't want three of them there, but let's get some of them. Okay, and as you can tell, those came out a little bit darker. I think I may do these over again to get a little bit more of that green into it. I like the darker green look to it. And again, I've gotten carried away with my sponge. It doesn't take much, you know, when you're using your daubers like this, you're just really wanting to daub. Let's see if I can, I may have to pull this where I can get closer to it and hopefully don't stick my head in here trying to line this up. And I bet you some of y'all are thinking, well, if she was using her Stamparatus, this wouldn't have happened, right? You're right. I should have had it over here with me. Okay, looks like I lined it up pretty well. So let's go ahead now and put our matting on, and then we will stamp our, and we can do our, actually we can stamp our salutation next, and then we'll put our matting on and go to the inside piece and work on it. So as you can see, it really, this doesn't take long, and it's really up to the person who's doing it, how they, we're going to need that color, so we might as well leave that out. But up to the person who's actually doing this and what they want their look to be. You can do real soft colors, you can do darker colors, whatever your taste and in your scenery and the outcome of what you want to see on it. So we're going to put a little bit of glue here, place this on the mat. Okay. And then we're going to put some more glue here and get our mat back into place. And as you can see now with putting the mat in, how you're covering and matching back where your mountains were and where we were stamping in the other areas. Ooh, ink still wet. I mean, the glue's still wet. Got to be careful pushing on it. When you want it to move, it doesn't, and when you don't want it to move, it does move. I think that's always the case. Okay, so let's go ahead and stamp in our sincere condolences. And again, this one is coming from the Kindness and Compassion Clearmount stamp set. I just absolutely love the fonts in this, and some of the sayings and everything are just beautiful. So let's see if I can get this straight now. Beautiful. Okay, so let's set this aside right now and do our inside portion of it. And what we did with it, just as a reminder to you, is we stamped in the gray granite for the tree to have a different color look to it, and then we sponged around the edges. So that's what we're going to do on this piece here. So let's go ahead and stamp our saying here. And what it's saying is sending comforting hugs and healing prayers. So sorry for your loss. And again, I absolutely love the fonts that they used in this set. Since we don't need this anymore, let's move it out of the way, and that way I can use my grid paper to help line me up and keep me as straight as possible. Let's bring this over a little bit here. About right here. Little crooked, so let's, good thing we didn't have that glued in. Let's go ahead and see if we can, I'm going to stamp it down here to see if I've got the, yeah, I've got the block on. It was just, I wasn't straight when I was putting it on that time. Okay, let's see if I can get this straight now. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that aside. And now we need our tree. Did I get it out yet? I may not have. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, so let's pull this one off, and we'll use this and pull our larger tree out here. We probably don't even need one that big here. Let's go ahead and put this to the side here. See if this will be big enough. Okay. And again, we're going to use the gray granite on that one. And here's the gray granite. I'm going to stamp it up. We'll try it. Since it's not the photopolymer, it doesn't go quite as close to the pad as the other one. And I do want to stamp it off once because I don't want a complete solid color coming in on this, because it'll be a little bit darker than I want, and I'm really looking for just a very almost like a watermark, just very subtle. So okay, good. I like that. All right, so now we can do our sponging, and then we'll wrap up this card real quick. So let's put away some of these inks. And bring our smoky slate out, and that'll be the end of this one, and we can go ahead and wrap it up for you. And if need be, you know, not knowing exactly how long this this got a little bit more ink than I really wanted on it, but that's okay. We'll make it work. That's the only bad thing about refilling your stamp pads is until you do a little bit on them, they get a little bit on the dark side. Sometimes what I'll do with those is just stamp it on a scrap paper and just, you know, the whole pad, and it takes off the excess color. But I didn't do that with this one. It looks like we're getting better control of the color now. Okay, that looks good. All right, so let's go ahead and map this one, and then we'll be able to put it in the card. And let's get our make sure we get some of that glue around the edges so that it stays down. Okay, and then okay. Looks beautiful. Let's get it on into our card here. That looks good. All right, there is our card. Isn't that gorgeous? All right. Okay, before I let you out, I just want to give you a little tidbit. I saw this on, I believe her name is France Martin, where she organizes her DSP, and I just loved her idea about it, because oftentimes you get these stacks of DSP going, and you know, they get mixed up and everything like that, and you forget where is it at, which drawer is it at, and you're digging all the time. So what she suggested here was you cut these blocks out, and so you've got your front of the paper, and then you have your back so you can see all the different patterns that you have available to yourself. The next thing she did was to take the cardstock that matches and make little strips here, and then labeled which cardstock it is that goes with the different papers. The name of it, the item number, what catalog it came out of, and what drawer you stored in. This way, when you're flipping through your little notebook, you can quickly know where to go for what design you're looking for. So that's my tidbit for Thursday. And until next time, happy stamping, and God bless you all.